Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Halakhic question, legal problem. Here you have in biblical times a family, but the family only has daughters. The father dies, what will happen to the inheritance?
Goes to the daughters.
It goes to the daughters, and we know this because of the daughters of Tzlofechad. Right? Tzlofechad was a man during the time of the Exodus there in Bamidbar, and he dies just before the land is set to be allocated, set to be given to the people of Israel as they are about to cross over the river Jordan into the land. And his daughters come to Moses and they say, "Excuse me, wait a minute. What, just because our dad had no sons, does that mean that his inheritance is disappeared? What about his family, his line? Surely it should be preserved." And Moses says, good point. And indeed, God corroborates, and a policy is set that if a man has no sons, then his inheritance will pass to his daughters. End of story, right? Well, it was 2 weeks ago, but this week we reopen that story. Because it turns out the rest of the tribe had their own question. Because what happens, biblically speaking, back in the days where the land was the primary form of inheritance, what happens if these women marry somebody from a different tribe? What if, rather than marrying from their home tribe, daughters of Tzlofechad notwithstanding, but any woman, having inherited the land from her father, she then marries some guy from a different tribe, and because she is the heir, she would then give that inheritance to her children, but her children would also be inheriting from their father of a different tribe, which means the land that went to her family is now going to be transferred in perpetuity, forever, into the hands of that other tribe. Is that fair, say the tribe to Moses?
No.
And Moses says, good point. You have a good point. You're right, that doesn't seem fair, because the whole point of having the tribal allocation, having a lottery to make sure that each of the tribes gets something, is to make sure that there is a fair and equitable distribution, as Marx would say, of the means of production, meaning the land, but trying to make sure that each tribe will have enough to support its people. And if you allow this land to disappear forever from that tribal allocation, then that tribe is going to go without. It will be reduced in its ability to take care of itself. But how do we reconcile these two? On the one hand, we want the women to be able to inherit in order that that line not be destroyed simply by the absence of male children. And on the other hand, we want the tribes to be able to inherit, to not disappear simply because we were so considerate of these other heirs that we allow the land to disappear. Did anyone do the homework for this week and read through the parashah to find the solution?
They forfeit the females, the daughters forfeit the inheritance.
Nope, they inherit. They absolutely inherit. That is their right as being the only children of their father. The daughters get the inheritance.
They don't have to give it back upon getting married?
They do not have to give it back upon getting married, but there is one caveat, and this is how it's balanced out. They have to marry somebody in the tribe. They have to marry someone from the same tribe as their father. So if you are from the tribe of Menashe, and your father dies leaving no heirs, then you have to marry another Menasheite, Manassite, however you say that in English. You have to marry someone else from that same tribe. Now, that's still thousands and thousands of people to pick from, but that means that the land will still stay within the tribe, and you will still get the inheritance from your father, and both sides get a little bit less than perhaps what they were hoping for. See, this is the beauty of the compromise that the Torah is trying to show us here. It is saying, yes, there will be competing interests. And those competing interests both have a point. As my professor, Rabbi Dorf, used to always say, a dilemma is where you actually have two good options. And sometimes you have to figure out what to do with that. It's not a dilemma if you only have one good option. It's only a dilemma when there are two good options, or two bad options. In this case, though, we have two good options. On the one hand, we want to be able to support this line to allow the family to inherit and the family to persist. On the other hand, we want to be able to support the tribe, and we want the tribe to inherit and persist. at first glance, it seems that these are mutually contradictory. How can we allow one to inherit if they're going to take the land away? How can we prevent them from inheriting in order to preserve the tribe? Moses, with God, reconciles these two. But the only way they can get to that reconciliation is by scratching a little bit beneath the surface. Too often when we dig in our heels on a conflict, on an argument of some principle, we are often so focused on what we think the solution should be that we forget what it is we are actually trying to accomplish. What the women are trying to accomplish is that their father's name, his lineage, not be lost, because that would be unfair. They're not trying to find the best match for themselves. They're not trying to game the system to be able to accumulate more power, more land, more wealth. They want to make sure that their father's line goes on. Likewise, the tribe is not trying to abuse the system and prevent the women from having these rights. The tribe is not offended by the wokeness of giving them inheritance rights. The tribe wants to make sure that the tribe is not diminished, because that would be unfair to the entirety of the tribe. They have no grudge against the women. They have no axe to grind against them. But sometimes when we argue, we forget those things. We become enemies simply because we have taken different positions, failing to recognize that sometimes there are solutions that will appease both interests. In this case, the women are given what they want. They are allowed to continue their father's name. They are allowed to continue their family line. It is preserved in perpetuity, protected and guarded by the Torah. And the tribe gets what it wants, what it truly wants, which is to make sure the tribe is not diminished, even while protecting the rights of these other inheritors. Had each side demanded only their opinion be heard, the Torah would have been diminished. We would have been impoverished. Instead, by each side being willing to listen to what was the actual germane interest of the other, to listen to an alternative suggestion for a policy that could reconcile both sides, perhaps not giving 100% of what each side thought it wanted at first, but giving 100% of what each side actually wanted in their heart. We have to speak to the heart to be able to find those moments of compromise. We have to be able to listen to the heart to be able to know what the other side truly wants. And then we can see that there is usually very little that will separate two good positions. Bad positions we'll talk about another time. But when two people come in good faith with honest concerns that are worthy of being listened to, there will always be a solution between them, because they are always there on that in that discussion, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Shabbat shalom.